welcome to another Luminar Coffee Break. I'm your host, Vanelli. Now, this topic, our episode today on this topic is going to be killer. It's how to build an augmented reality using layers and different tools inside Luminar. So, as photographers, we're so used to photographing an image and making sure that we capture the reality of it. Well, now we get to have a little fun and change it up a bit. So let me just show you what we're going to start with. Here's the actual original image that was taken by one of our Scotland ambassadors. I love this church. Here he just added a simple white balance and changed it to tungsten. What we're going to do is build upon this. Ooh, look at that. We'll add a moon, some birds, and we'll relight the scene to get the look that we're going for. So I've often said, ask yourself, are you a photographer, a graphic artist, or a retoucher? And we could be all three, but make sure whatever we are at that moment, we're that person. So as a photographer, yeah, it's fun getting that beautiful shot. Now we get to expand it a little bit more and be a little more creative with some of the tools. Now this is extremely subjective. You can look at it from a different angle or a different view. It's okay. It's art. It's meant to be what you envision and what you feel looks good for you. All right? Now, hey, welcome everyone. See, we have a bunch of people coming in. Awesome. Hello, Mr. PhotoBiz. And with my buddy Julie again. Marilyn. And how you doing, David? Watching in Belize. How you doing? All right. So before we begin, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Fujifilm, where they remind us to make images, share stories, and experience moments at the speed of life with Fujifilm. Thank you for staying at home with us. Now, they have this killer new ebook that just came out, which is a book on 6B light techniques to create better photos. And earlier in the week, we showed you their other ebook that they had, which was on portrait, different ways to create portraits. So with that, make sure you follow the bit.ly and download the images or download the ebook. All right, guys, hey, let's begin. Oh, we have Gary McIntyre here. Hello, Gary, from Scotland. And my buddy Mike, how you doing, bud? All right, guys, so here we are with the image we're going to start with. Now, first thing I do like to start with is just developing it overall. So I'm going to jump to my favorite tool, AI Enhancer, and just lighten it up just a bit, bring out some of the hidden details. Now, structure is going to be really important here. I want to crank this sucker all the way up. Now, by doing that, I love what it's doing to the clouds and to the church. I'm not too happy what it's doing to the bottom half. So let's create an edit mask, but this time we'll use a gradient mask. And I'm going to draw from the bottom all the way up to right about here. Now, notice something. When I did this, the bottom half kept the AI structure. The top half, it got rid of. So here's the mask. What we want to do is flip it. So just come over to the mask tool, and I want to invert it. There we go. Now notice the top has the effect, and the bottom doesn't. I'll just turn it on and off. Look at that. Beautiful. All right. So we have that. There we go. So that looks really cool. Now, what I want to do is bring out a little more of the colors. Let's bump up the vibrancy a little bit. Ooh, look what it's doing to the red. And tone down the saturation just a touch. Good. All right, that's looking good. Now, what I don't like is this area here. I want to make it a little bit darker. So let's start with a vignette. And I want to choose the church as my focus point. And I'm just going to go to an extreme just so you can see what we're doing. Yeah, it's right about here is good. Yeah, let's do some feathering. There we go. Now I'm going to add some inner light. There we go. So you see what that's going to do for us. Great. And I'm going to dial back some of the amount and the size right about there. Good. Ready? Look at that. So here we are. And now the focus is on the church. That's looking really good. All right, so I like where we're at with the essential tools. Let's jump over to our Pro Tools. And you guessed it, I'm going to go after the adjustable gradient because I want this section here darker. So here's the bottom half. Oh, I did the top half. Bottom half. There we go. So it's nice and dark, but I want to put it on an angle because up in the top left corner, that's where I'm going to put a moon. So if the moon is here, part of this is going to be lit, and I want to focus it onto the church. So let's set the orientation, and let's rotate it. Put it into place at about, there we go. Good. That's it. And I might as well hide some of the shadows. There, that's looking better. Now it's really focusing on the church. Great. Now let's get creative. Here's that augmented sky. From here, I'm going to click on the drop down, and let's see which moon we want. Here's moon 2. Yep, that's the moon I want. Now I'm going to place it up in the corner, and I'm going to drag from the corner to keep it proportional. What about, there's good. Nice. Now I can come over to the advanced settings. Now first of all, when I'm here, if I want to lock it into place, I'll just click the place object again. This way it stays where I want it to stay. And I'm going to remask it just a little bit. There we go. Look at that. So you see how when I remasked it, what it was doing? It brought this section in a little bit more. So this is looking good. Now it may even bring this a little bit darker, but we'll see. So I like where this is at. However, you know what? Let's see if we come up to the light. Let's drop the overall exposure just a little bit. All right, right about there is good. Good. Now, if here's the moon, what we want to do is set a path right to the church. So let's come back to the Pro Tools. A little dodge and burn. We're going to use lighten. And let's build up the effect. So let's drop this to a lower value. Good. Now the first thing I want to do is come into the church. Look at that. And just pretend that this light right here is bringing it into the church. There. It doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but if I toggle it on and off, look at that. We can see how it's affecting it. Let's come back to erase and use a larger brush just to feather it. And that looks a little too much like a beam. So I'm going to come back in and let's change that to a really low value. And let's lighten it again. There we go. And by doing what I just did, what I'm really trying to do is get the edges to be a little more feathered. There we go. And done. Good. All right, so let's see where we're at. All right, I like where we're going with it so far. So here's the original. And now we added that fake moon, and we had a little moonbeam coming down onto the church. All right, so let's see, we have that set. Now, the next part, what we want to do is I'm looking very close at it, and I'm thinking, all right, now's the time to add the birds. But before I do, this top section here, let's add a little bit more light to that. So let's go back to the dodge and burn. We'll start painting. 50's fine. I just want to dab it just a little bit. Good. Erase right about there. Good. Just enough. Not too much, but just enough to add to it. Good. Now, we can't add another. So if I come up to the creative tools, I can't add another augmented sky on this layer. So what we need to do is jump up to the layer tools, and we're going to create a new stamp layer. Now, the stamp layer is going to copy all the effects that we did on the layer from the top to the bottom, copy them all, and then merge it onto its own layer up on top. So then this way, we can add another augmented sky to it. Otherwise, we weren't able to add another sky because the sky is already on the bottom layer. All right, so here we are. Now, let's see. Let's come down to the, hey, Jan. We'll come down to our creative tools. Oh, make sure I'm on. Yeah, I am. So here's the original. Wait, do I have the original? Wait. You know what? I don't think I create a stamp layer. You know, I am so sorry. I never created the stamp layer. All right, so as the stamp layer is being merged, then we'll add it from here. Now, as we were mentioning earlier, you can only have one stamp layer or only one augmented sky or one sky on per layer. Okay, now it's not adding it, so let me do this real quick. I'm going to shut down and reboot. I was doing it so much. Hello, Mayor. I've been doing this so much all day practicing and rehearsing. I bet you I filled up the memory on it. So once it comes in, here we go. Now let's try that again. Layers. Oh, it did create it. All right, so I apologize. I wasn't patient enough. So we already had the stamp layer created. It actually has two stamp layers. So once again, I wasn't patient enough to look for it. All right, so here we are. Creative, augmented sky, and now let's just add some birds. Why? I don't know, it just screams for birds. Look at that. And I want to place it. Now again, I'm going to drag out just to make it a little bit larger. And look at that. Awesome. Good. And place it. So the birds are adding a nice effect to it. Now, once I have that set, what I want to do is, if I were to come down to the looks, and if I were to add a look, a new mood enhancer look to this right now, it's going to erase the birds. So what I want to do is add a new adjustment layer. And now the changes are going to be on top of this layer. So watch this. This is a really cool trick. Boom! Look how cool that just tied everything in. Before and after. So that's one of the hidden tricks. When you're doing a composite, it's always important to make sure that the top layer, you add something that both layers can benefit from, because then it looks like it was meant to be. Now, obviously, the moon is never going to be this big, shining just like this out of the house with all the birds or maybe even bats flying above. But man, does that look cool. So let me hide the looks, fit the screen, and we'll pull it up a little bit. Awesome. So once again, this is the original image we started with. And then we just built upon using different layers, we're able to get this effect. Now, while I got you guys here, let's do this. I'm going to shut off the birds layer. Turn it back on. All right. Let's come back to the stamp layer. And the stamp layer added the birds to it. It was the absolute bottom layer. This layer right here is where that moonbeam, let's get to it. I think it was under, yep, dodge and burn. Let's see. Yep. So the moonbeam, I'm not a huge fan of what I just did there. So let's start painting again, but I want to erase just some of it. I'm going to do a little squiggly, if that's even a word. Good. And then come back to lighten. There we go. There, that's better. Good, I'm just dabbing. Nice. There. Good. Good, good, good. And apply. Now, here's one of the issues. Because we created a stamp layer up on here, well, that effect just got destroyed. So I'm going to come back to this layer and just leave everything else intact. Let's create another stamp layer. I just won't select this layer up on top. And once it's selected, yep. Hey, Russell, yes. Yeah, Russell, it's funny. Earlier this morning, I was able to pull the birds on top of the moon. And I think that's why it's going a little bit slower, because I must have done this a million times. Nah, it's an exaggeration. I must have done it about maybe 15 times. And I still wasn't able to. However, if I make the moon blurry, a little blurrier, or more white to it, the birds actually ended up on top of it. So I'm going to check with our support, because it's doing what it's supposed to do. And let me show you. Let's add the birds again. Russell was with us earlier this morning. So notice the birds are not on the church or anything, and that's what it's intended to do. Look at that. So this is the intention. It's intended because there's an object here. It's not a sky. It's something in the sky. So the moon is a little too maybe intense for it to be on top. So maybe if I were to lower the opacity of that layer, maybe that would have done it, but I'm not 100% positive. Let me put it in place. So let's go back to the layers. So there's that stamp layer. Yep. I don't want to transform it. Sorry. So I go back to this layer here. And Augmented Sky. I mean, I could. Yeah, I guess I could bring it in a little bit less so it's not as predominant. So maybe we could have done that, Russell, and then maybe the birds would have jumped on top of it. But that deals with more experimenting. But again, since we're already here, and I made that a stamp layer, I have it set. Now I can just jump up to the very top layer, and there we are. Maybe the birds and the moon. I did try that too. Maybe the birds, then the moon. I did try that, and maybe that is one of the solutions to it. But it's one of these cool things. You start experimenting so much, and I was once told that it's a piece of art when you can't reproduce it, when you wonder, what the heck did I do? Now, the cool thing is with Luminar is I just click down here, and I can go back through all of the history to see what I did and what order I did to get that effect. So I just have to take a few extra moments on the other computer that I did this to and see how I got the birds, which order I need to get the birds on top. But keep in mind, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to see a scene like that. It could be a building like our building, and it's supposed to go underneath it, not on top of it. So I'll double check that. But I really like the results. And I wish, honestly, I took the picture, because I would love to have this hanging up on my wall. In fact, let me do one last thing. Since we're already on the, we're on the top layer. Yeah, I would probably make it a little richer. I guess I'm being biased because that's kind of my style. I like the grit style. So I could definitely see something like this hanging up on my wall. All right. So maybe, oh yes, maybe it's the blend mode for the birds. Good. So what I love about this, let's see. Okay, good, yes. And so why do we do those layers? And really, it's not all those layers. You have the base layer, the moon layer, the bird layer, and then you finish it off with an adjustment layer. So 2 stamp layers, and then an adjustment layer. So yes, we could do that to build up to the effect. We were saying earlier, this is a perfect example on how we could take Luminar to a different approach. Instead of just a beautiful our digital darkroom, making our photos look absolutely amazing like he did here. I love this. I love this shot. You know, that's a great photograph. This here, to me, there we go. Interesting. Oh, I like both of them. So this here is just a piece of art. And that's something, again, it can be printed on metal. It can be printed on a metallic paper. I just think it'll jump out at you. Norway. Hey, guys. So, well, hey, guys, thank you so much. And again, this topic was brought up because one of our members said, hey, could you show us how to use the Augmented Sky to where you can make it look believable in an image? Now, there are some where you could put a whale tail. Now, let's say I just came back from Alaska, and we went whale hunting. We went whale photographing, and if I didn't catch the whale tail, I could put that in the scene. But to me, that's cheating. That's something. If I came back and said, "Oh yeah, look what I got from Alaska," now that's going way too far. But if I would have put that whale tail in a puddle, in a building with a bunch of New York skyscrapers, and there's a little puddle with a whale tail sticking out of it, now it's art. People will forgive you for doing that. So, guys, thank you so much, and please like the video if you all could. It'll help us, and also comments, leave them below. If you have questions, put them in there, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next Luminar Coffee Break.